What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Make Every Second Count Live. Now, I'm your host and award-winning international Make Every Second Count speaker, Jeff Marconette Jr. And we have this program every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to show you that if people can go through things and overcome them, then so can you. And I really want to have more of a conversation than make a presentation. So please ask all the questions you would like, and I will get them answered for you. But I faced a near-death car accident, and I spent 2.5 months in a coma and 3.5 in the hospital. Now, tonight's guy that I have on here is nothing short of amazing because he has run a marathon with somebody else's heart and lungs. Hold on. Wait, I think you might have missed that. I'm going to say it again. So, this guy, my guest tonight, has run a marathon with somebody else's heart and lungs. And that's even possible? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring Mark up here, and he is going to tell everybody a little about himself.
Hey, Jeff, how are you, man? Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody.
I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, good to be here, man. So let's, I'll give you the kind of what I call the Reader's Digest version of the story, and then we'll, I'm sure, dive into some more details. But essentially, I was born with a congenital heart defect. I had open heart surgery, flown by helicopter when I was born, and open heart surgery at a day old. And then kind of battled my health for 23 years. Lots of ups and downs, lots of challenges along the way, which I know Jeff knows all about. And then when I was 23, in the period of about 6 months, everything kind of just took a downturn really quickly. I started to notice a lot of things going wrong, shortness of breath. I got tired really easily. Something was wrong. And went to see my doctor, and they put me in the hospital. We did a bunch of tests. And at the end of all of that, they said, look, you need a heart and 2 new lungs, and you need them yesterday. And so in a span of 24 hours, my whole world was turned upside down. And I was given a choice to either get a transplant, the obvious option. But as we may discuss later, that's not as easy as it sounds. There are not enough donors for everybody that needs one. And so the doctor said, look, you may want to consider the other option, which is, given that you may not have a lot of time, you may want to spend whatever time you do have, hanging out with family and friends and checking some things off your bucket list or whatever, not trying to, not waiting in a hospital for something that is not even going to happen. And so I had to kind of make a decision, and I chose to go through with the transplant, which meant moving about 1,000 miles from home and being put on the transplant list. And I was put on the transplant list in October of 2001, and I was transplanted in September of 2002, so almost a year on the list. In the last 6 months of that year, I spent in the hospital on a heart monitor 24 hours a day, 7 days a week while I waited. And, I was really fortunate, really lucky that a suitable donor was found in time. And I had my transplant in 2002 in September. So it's been almost been 18 years now, which is insane. I never thought I'd live this long. And
you're muted. Hang on there.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There we go.
That was weird.
That is weird. Okay, cool. So was I muted the whole time or just a few seconds?
Just for a few seconds.
Okay, cool. So I about 2.5 years after the transplant, I ran the first marathon, and then ran 3 more. and then we had our second child, and it didn't seem fair to be going out training for marathons while my wife was holding two kids, so I stopped running long distance and yeah, became a speaker as I know you are, and wrote a book, and just been really blessed to still be healthy, still doing well, and doing my best to try and make a difference in the world.
That is crazy. So when you said you had to move 1,000 miles from home, how old were you when this happened?
So at that point I was 23, and so it was obviously a big deal. What the reason for that was simply that the closest medical center that did lung transplants specifically, because they're more rare, was 1,000 miles away, and it was in Toronto. And the transplant team there does not allow you to be put on a transplant list if you're going to be by yourself. Like they kind of require that you have a support person there with you at all times. Which I have to say, initially, I was, a 24-year-old guy. I was like, look, I've been through tons of stuff. Like, I'm not a baby. I don't need. Thank God that they made that happen, because I had either my mom or my dad with me the whole time, and they picked me up off the ground. I don't know how many times when I was emotionally spent and ready to quit. So, so initially, Dad and I moved to Toronto, and then my mom and he switched places a couple times through that year. So that the other could stay home with. I had three younger brothers who they wanted to keep at home so they could keep going to school and keep having a somewhat normal life.
Yeah. So where exactly do you live now? And where did you live when this went down?
Yeah, for sure. So I live in a place called Moncton, New Brunswick, on the east coast of Canada. So we're about a 4-hour drive to the Maine border, about a 10-hour drive to due north of Boston, kind of give or take. So that gives you kind of an idea geographically where we are. Yeah. And then I had my transplant in Toronto, so kind of southwest, but mostly west of where I live. So it's like a 2-hour flight, which is how we got there. But it would be a 12-hour drive if you chose to drive it.
That's crazy. So I would like to take a minute here and welcome a few people in, say hi to them, and just say thank you for watching. And if you guys please would share this video out with all kinds of people, because Greg's story here can definitely help somebody out. Oh, I called you Greg. I don't know why, but Mark. Sorry.
No worries, man.
I gotta think of Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
There you go. There you go. I wish I had his money or his abs. I don't have either one, but yeah.
All right. So I need to say hi to my dad, to Sarah, to Amy, to Marilyn, to Brittany, to Greg, to Christine, and I hope you guys are all having a great night. Oh, hi, Nita and Mark, watching from Oklahoma. So
cool.
That's kind of far from you.
Yeah, Oklahoma's I have been there. It's a long trip.
Yeah, well, I haven't been there, so I'm probably not missing anything. But
well, I won't make any comments about that. I'll let the people from Oklahoma make that call. But
sorry, Nita. All right, so we normally on this show ask people about things they have been through and how exactly they accomplished that thing, and then how they dealt with that thing, and then how, if they have any suggestions for other people that are dealing with things. Now, I know personally that, well, I don't know personally that a heart transplant and a lung transplant can be hard, but if it's anything like the things I've been through, they're difficult. They're hard to get back to normal. Did you have to go through therapy at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Physical and mental and emotional therapy. Yeah. So Actually, I think if this works, I'm going to try. I'll see if I can show you a picture, actually. Let's see here. There we go. So that's what I look like 7 days after the surgery.
Well, you look pretty good.
Yeah, not bad, right? I still got a bunch of staples in my chest and some chest tubes coming out, and like, you know, I don't know, 80 pounds or 90 pounds or whatever it is. So I was pretty sick, but at that point, glad to be alive, you know. And so from there, it was like back to square one, right? Like I remember the first day of rehab was walk from the bed to the bathroom door with a walker, you know, and that was kind of like, that's goal number one. I remember going to the gym, the hospital rehab gym, probably a week or so after the transplant, to go and begin to build back some strength, and you know, picking up like a pink dumbbell that was about this big, right, and trying to arm curl that and trying to feel like a tough guy, a 24-year-old guy lifting this little tiny weight. But that's where I started, and it was a long, hard road. I'd say it was 4 or 5 months before I was physically back to where I was before the surgery, which was still not great because I was still sick. And it was, I don't know, a couple of years before I felt like I was really as healthy as I could be.
That is crazy. Now I understand. Wow. Because I've been in physical therapy now for over 19 years, and it's really tough. So I can imagine after a heart and lung transplant, the difficulty you faced at that time. That's crazy. So do you happen to have any suggestions, any tips, any hacks that other people can use that are dealing with something? Now, it might not be a heart and lung transplant because there's probably not many of those, but it might be something, say the loss of a job, or the death of a family member, or the loss of their finances, the loss of their house, the loss of their car. Everybody's going through something. Do you have any suggestions for people going through anything?
Yeah, great question. And yeah, I mean, I've got some ideas for you. That here's what I'll say first. I'll say these are the things that worked for me. They're the things that I share when I'm on stage and when I'm coaching people. But it, you know, it doesn't mean that they're perfect, and it doesn't mean that everything's going to work equally well for everybody. I've got kind of 4 kind of ideas that I hope will be helpful for you. And the first thing, and it's probably the hardest part of the process for me, anyway, was to accept reality as it is. And so
acceptance.
Yeah, right. Like, it's a tricky thing because what we don't want to be victims, right? We don't want to say, you know, I'm a victim of circumstance. Bad things have happened to me. It's not fair and nothing I can do about it. But we also don't want to live in denial. And I think a lot of the time, you know, we've all gone through this crazy thing over this last year. And I don't know about you, but it took me a couple of weeks to accept that, man, this isn't getting back to normal like tomorrow. Like,
No.
This is not a hiccup. This is a big deal. It's going to take some time. And unless and until we're willing to do that, we can't deal with it, right? Like, if you're pretending it isn't there or pretending it's not as big a deal as it is, then quite likely it's going to get worse on you before it gets better, and you're not ready to take it on, right? So at an extreme level, that starts to look like denial. You know, you hear stories about people in addiction, for example, who tailspin because they just aren't willing to face the fact that they have a problem. Well, to a lesser degree, that's what we all do every day when we face an obstacle in our lives that we don't want to face. If we don't face it, it gets worse, right? So if you lost your job, that sucks. And it's not fair, you know, like, it's not your fault probably, and it's not fair. So let's like deal with what it is, right? And accept it, because until you do, you can spend weeks on the couch feeling sorry for yourself, but that's not going to help you get another job, right? So we start with just saying, okay, it is what it is. And so for me, that looked like, I'm stuck in the hospital waiting for this transplant, and there are very few things I can do about it. Like I can't do anything to make a donor come along. All I can do is wait and do my best to kind of maintain my health. The few things I can do to maintain my health, I do those things. And so I had to learn to kind of let go of the things that I couldn't fix, to accept those. And once you do that, it's tricky. It's an ongoing process. It's not like a switch that you flip, but it's something that you kind of work on over time. But as you do that, then you can begin to take the next step, which is to then adapt to the new reality, right? So once you've accepted that the reality has changed, well, now you go, okay, so if the reality has changed, what are the new rules, right? What's the new environment? How are things different? And what do I need to do differently so that I can still thrive in this new environment? And, hopefully we've all been doing that lately, right? Whether it took us 2 weeks or 2 months, hopefully by now, a year into this thing, that we've all made some significant adaptations to function better, right?
During the whole COVID thing, including it's still going on, but so I put together 7 virtual events last year, and I put one together so far this year, and there are more coming, but they were called the Get Up events. Now, I called them the Get Up events because I felt that with the election, with the whole pandemic thing, that everybody was kind of being held down. And I wanted to provide people with the motivation, the inspiration, the positivity, and the encouragement to get up again. And I have had anywhere from 16 to my smallest event was 3 motivational speakers. Now, these motivational speakers haven't been small motivational speakers. In fact, I've had numerous international motivational speakers that are all there to help other people out, because we know that there's stuff going on in the world, and we wanted to provide that light out, that hand up. And that's just something I did during the time that I was being held down, and I didn't want that to hold me down, so I didn't let it.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. Right. It's, so for all of you listening, so before March of last year, so you were, if this was 2 years ago, I was making 90% of my revenue, 90% of the money I take home to feed my 3 kids every day, by getting on a plane and going to an event and speaking to 2 to 3 to 1,000 people. And in March of last year, in the span of 1 week, like I remember we were away on family vacation in Florida. We came home, and in 1 week, I got, I don't know how many emails and phone calls saying canceled, postponed, canceled, postponed. My whole calendar disappeared in 5 days, which also meant my entire revenue for the year disappeared in 5 days. So I didn't lose my job, but I lost my job, right? Because I couldn't do it anymore. And so, if you've been through that, I get it. Like, it's horrible. And the worst part is, much like when I was waiting for my transplant, you have very little control, right? Like, there's not a whole lot you can do about it, at least at the beginning. And so it took me a week or so to kind of just absorb what was happening, realize that this was not a 2 or 3 day or even 2 or 3 month event, that this was going to affect things for a while, and then say, okay, now what? Like, what am I going to do? Right? So accept it is what it is. How am I going to cope with this? And for me, that there were a lot of things, a lot of options on the table in terms of how to adapt to this, right? One is like, do I just go and get a quote unquote real job? Like, I'm an entrepreneur. Do I just go and get a 9 to 5 and try and find a salary somewhere? Mm-hmm. Do I start doing only coaching? I've been doing some coaching. So do I forget speaking altogether and just go do coaching? Do I go back to teaching? Because that's where I was before I became a speaker. Like all of these kind of options, and all of the time that you're thinking about that, you're also just like, I got to survive tomorrow, right? So it's like, do I need to apply for loans? Do I need to apply for government aid? Like, how do I just survive next week? And then what am I going to do longer term? So all of that is part of this adapting process. And the biggest takeaway for me from the last year was that I think the mistake a lot of us make is we don't adapt quickly enough because we're afraid of making the wrong choice. We're afraid of trying the wrong thing. We want to make sure that we've got everything lined up perfectly and that we've thought other things through before we do it. And sometimes if you do that, you just miss the boat and you still guess wrong. So instead, I'm a big fan of like, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. Like just a bunch of stuff, right? Like I love that you talk about hosting these live. That's what I did too. I was like, I host an annual live conference. I've been doing it for 4 or 5 years now. I was like, obviously I can't do that. So what am I going to do? Well, let's see if we can do a virtual one. It's going to be totally different, but that's okay. Can I do this? Can I deliver a keynote presentation that's typically done in front of a 500 person audience with sound and lights and a stage and all of that stuff? And can I do it looking at this green dot on my computer? That's totally foreign to me, right? Yeah. But I slowly but surely figured it out. And like, if you're looking at this right now and you're like, oh, that's kind of like a pretty decent looking setup. Well, I wish you could have seen what it looked like 6 months ago or a year ago, right? Like it was me sitting in my living room with my AirPods and my laptop screen, and the video was bad and the audio was bad and I didn't know what I was doing, right? And slowly but surely, I watch a bunch of YouTube tutorials and I talk to other speakers and I, look at what other people are doing and I start to build this studio that I'm sitting in right now that is in the basement of my house because I didn't need a production studio before, but now I do, right? And then I figure out, okay, so we get that done. Now, how do I sell what I do to the same organizations that used to book me to come live, and how do I sell that to them virtually? And that's been a whole process of figuring that out. So however the pandemic has affected you or whatever else you're going through right now, think about what are the small incremental changes. Like they don't always, the other thing about adapting that people get kind of caught up with is they think they have to make these massive changes. Sometimes we do, right? Like sometimes you got to pack your bags and move 1,000 miles from home to wait for a transplant. Most of the time though, it's a lot smaller than that. It's little pivots, little tweaks, little changes that over time can create major impact in your life, right? And so I'm a big fan of just like trying things and seeing what works.
Sorry, I just messed up my hand today, and I'm actually going to the ER after I am done with this, but I just had to itch my eye, and I was like, oh. All right. Sorry about that.
All good, man.
But I want to ask you, because I called this show running a marathon with somebody else's heart and lungs. So what was that like? I mean, what has that done to you? Like, has it given you like psychic abilities or anything of that sort, or how does it make you feel?
So today, 18 years later, it's rare that I notice it. It's rare that I try, because I'm really intentional about it. I think about my donor every day because I choose to, not because like physically the organs feel like they're mine. They have from probably 2 months in. The first couple of weeks was crazy because my heart that I was born with had an irregular rhythm. It wasn't working properly, but that's all I knew. And so for me, that was normal. And so now all of a sudden, after the transplant, I've got this new heart that beats normally and strong and works well. And it would echo in my ear. Like at night, I couldn't sleep because this was like boom, boom. It was like this thud in my ear. And it was this new heart that was doing what it was supposed to do. But for me, it was completely foreign and new, right? And so I had adapted so well, or Yeah, I mean, I adapted so well to this old clunky one that wasn't working that was normal, and so this new one that was actually normal for all of you felt weird. Um, but yeah, I mean, beyond that, there were some little funny changes, like my tastes in foods changed a little bit, and I never drank coffee before my transplant. Now I love it. So there's a few little things like that, but nothing too significant other than, like I said, that echo in the ear and this kind of realization of like, I remember sitting in that hospital bed right around the time of that picture that I showed you, and that steady heartbeat was symbolic of the fact that I was healthy, right? For the first time really in my life. And so it kind of represented this new possibility of like, I wonder what's possible now that wasn't possible 6 months ago. And that's kind of where the marathon idea came from. It was just like, I have no idea if I can do this or not, but I wonder if I can. And the only way to really know is to try and see what happens.
I actually know another runner that her name is Maria, but she's toeless and she goes out and runs. And that has to be hard because she has nothing to help her balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just crazy the things that people can accomplish when they really want to. And just the fact that I'm sitting here with you and you've done all this stuff that's really dang amazing. And I know Maria, and she's really dang amazing. And then you throw in my story with them, and it's like, wow, we're the three musketeers.
You're right. It's for anybody that's listening who's feeling like, geez, whatever I'm dealing with right now is hard. First of all, I get it. I empathize, and I agree with you. Like, one of the things that we have to be careful of is it's inspiring to listen to stories, hopefully inspiring to listen to stories like this, to listen to people like Jeff or myself or Maria or anybody else talk about what they've overcome. But I get sometimes from audience members or from people who listen to podcasts or interviews I do, and they say things like, wow, like I could never do that. Or, my story is nothing compared to yours, and like,
but
that's
they
totally,
can do that.
yeah.
That's what people need to realize, that yes, while we did these things, they're all possible for you, because at one time, well, we still are, but we're all just regular people. We're no different than you. We're no different than Harry down the street. We're no different than Debbie back behind me. We're no different.
No.
So if we can accomplish this, what can you guys accomplish? Think about it.
100%, right? The difference, the only difference is probably that, in a lot of our cases, we were forced to make a lot of these big changes, right? So I didn't have to run a marathon, no, but I had to get a transplant. Like, people will say sometimes, well, that's like so brave, and I was like, it doesn't really take much bravery,
no,
to do what you need to do to live. Like,
yeah,
it's that or die. It's actually, so yeah, I mean, it's a kind of a unique story, but it's just doing what you have to do to get through the day, which is what everybody everywhere does all the time. And I am inspired by people that do things that I cannot imagine doing because I've never had to do it. That's kind of the whole thing, right? If you haven't lived it, then it feels like maybe it's impossible for you, but that's just because you haven't had to do it yet. And I also say, people, look, if like, not everybody wants to run a marathon. Like, don't take that away from this story. Like, if that's not your thing, cool. But to your point, Jeff, it's about sharing with people, like, whatever that thing is for you that you want to do, or whatever that thing is that you need to get through right now. Like, you can figure out a way to do that. And accepting and adapting are two of the things that are going to help you to get there. The other two pieces of the framework that I teach people you then have to aim and act, right? You have to figure out what you're aiming at. In other words, what's your goal? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? What do you want your life to look like in 6 months? A lot of the time, especially when we're facing big challenges, we start to get really nearsighted, right? Nearsighted or farsighted. I always forget which is which. Basically, we only look one foot in front of us, right? Yeah. We're figuring out, like, we're living for the weekend, or maybe we're just trying to figure out tomorrow, and we don't stop and go, but what do I want my future to look like? Like, what direction am I really going in here? And that's what having a goal is all about. Like, that's what people say, how did you get through the transplant? And I say, I always had a picture of a better future in front of me. I always believed that tomorrow could be better than today is.
Yeah.
And that gives me the drive to get up.
That's how I started walking. I could see it for myself. While people were telling me it wasn't possible, I had this picture in my mind's eye that just gravitated me towards it. Like, I knew that was happening. I wasn't going to accept anything besides that.
It's amazing what happens when we set a higher standard for ourselves, right? And we just say, look, I'm not taking anything less than what my limit is. And most of us go to our graves without any idea what our limit is, because we're not willing to push ourselves hard enough to find out. You know, it's funny. Like, I right now I do CrossFit instead of running, basically because it's more efficient. I can get it done, and I can get the same kind of workout in 25 minutes that it would take me an hour or more to do if I was going for a run. And what it's taught me, because the way it works is, like, you go to a gym and it's a class and you've got a coach and they give you this workout you have to do, and it's almost always more than you think you can do. Like, every time, I've been going for a year and a half, and still I go in and I look at the board and I'm like, I don't think I can do that today. And and I always end up on the floor, like, spent at the end of the workout. But I also, like, get personal bests and new limits, like, regularly. And it's simply because someone's there to say, take one more step. Someone's there to say, do one more rep. Someone's there to say, push one more minute. Right. And most of us don't know what our limits are because we haven't been pushed like that. And so, you know, if you think you can't, it's probably just because you haven't pushed yourself hard enough.
Yeah, exactly. Man, you're preaching to the choir. I mean, I tell this stuff to people all the time, especially at the gym, because one of my pet peeves at the gym is people that say, I can't do that. I can't do this. It hurts. You just haven't tried it.
Yeah, and it's probably, depending on what you're doing at the gym, it's probably supposed to hurt a little. Like, that's okay. We have this thing in our society where we think that things are supposed to be easy, and if they're hard, then something's wrong. It's like, if you think about anything that's been worthwhile in your life that you've done, I promise you it's been hard. Like, that's part of what makes it worth doing. And so this whole idea of, like, running away from things because they're hard or because they're painful is crazy. Like, whatever it is you want is probably on the other side of some discomfort. And you're either gonna avoid the discomfort and suffer the long-term pain of the regret of never doing it, or you're gonna suffer some discomfort and enjoy the rewards of having gone through whatever it is you gotta get through.
Man, that's just give me chills, man. And I shake right now, but that would hurt my hand.
Yeah, don't hurt your hand.
Yeah. No, I'm not looking forward to hurting my hand. But so, is there any contact information or anything else that you would like to give our viewers?
Yeah, if you look right there on the screen, at Mark Black Speaks is where you can find me on Instagram, and Twitter, what's the new one that everybody's on that I'm supposed to know what I'm doing, but I still don't know? Clubhouse.
Oh, yeah, I've gotten invitations to that. I ain't joining right now.
Yeah, it's pretty noisy. over there. But anyway, so you can find me. Instagram is probably the best place if you're on Instagram, or on Facebook. I'm there too. And if you want, you can go to my website is markblack.ca, because I'm Canada, so markblack.ca. And you'll find some resources on there. I think there's still a download to my free book on there as well. So yeah, I think that's probably the best way to get in touch.
That is awesome. Now, I just want to take a second here, Mark, and tell you how appreciative I am of you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be with me, my viewers, and everybody that's going to watch this show.
Hey, Jeff, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah, everybody, I shared this out on my Facebook page as well. So if you're watching from my Facebook page, make sure you check out Jeff as well, because he's got a pretty amazing story of his own. So,
all right. Well, hey, thank you, Mark. And I have to urge everybody out there to do me a favor this week, next week, for the rest of your life. I need you to make every second count. Why? Because you never know when the seconds are going to run out on your one life. Hey, have a great night. I'll see you back here next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time.